caught on camera tonight on KGW News, the eerie sight that spun up inside an Oregon wildfire.
The phenomenon acts very similar to how a dust devil forms.
Plus, in search of blue sky when we're forecast to finally get some relief from the smothering smoke. Then, a high-speed chase in Clark County which stopped the driver allegedly linked to multiple hit and runs. And later,
many of your constituents see this vote as an unfair trade-off of good vibes for bad budget.
What Portland's leaders heard from the public when it comes to using millions in taxpayer money to upgrade Moda and hang on to Rip City. Well, good evening, everyone. Let's get going with our KGW weather impact alert, because after all the heat, haze, and smoke, there is hope for the Portland Metro finally on the horizon. We've seen it clear out already in some parts of the Northwest, and what's left has made for some stunning, if not smoky, sunsets. Let's get right to Matt tracking when we'll finally see some relief. Matt?
Yeah, we're going to gradually see things improve during the day tomorrow. Here's downtown Portland right now. Still smoky, 74 degrees. Humidity is pretty low. But again, the smoke has been the story for the last couple of days, and our air quality is still in the unhealthy category in Portland. Some places in the unhealthy just for sensitive groups. You don't get into the good air till you get to the coast or down to southern Oregon. But down south of Eugene, it's in the very unhealthy category. So again, we continue to fight bad air quality because of wildfire smoke. But there are some changes beginning to show up. Now, this is the grasshopper fire smoke plume, and I'll show you the fire itself in just a second. But notice how all the smoke is getting pushed on off to the east. Here's the smoke in the valley that was delivered by the east winds from that fire. You can see it moving to the west, then a switch, and we start to see it thin out. We saw that around sunset tonight, which is why we had those sunsets. So again, the process has begun, but it's slow and gradual in the beginning when that happens. Now, this is video sent to me from a friend tonight right near Bennett Pass and Highway 35 of the grasshopper fire. You can see the smoke, you can see the flames, big flames. This is right along Highway 35. The fire has yet to jump Highway 35 to the west, and the wind is now pushing that smoke and the fire back to the east. But there's the highway itself right there, and you can see how close those flames are and that smoke. So again, a really, really close call for places like Mount Hood Meadows under a level 3 go now evacuation order. But the good news is, watch the smoke forecast here clear the valley out as we go into tomorrow, and especially tomorrow night. And on Friday, things will be improving. We'll keep the weather impact alert going for one more day because of the smoke. The heat will continue a little bit into Friday, and then much cooler weather as we go to the weekend, David.
Just one more day. Thanks, Matt. Well, speaking of that grasshopper fire, it has some 6,000 people under evacuation notices. Right now, it's burned more than 39,000 acres and is some 20% contained. The evacuation levels remain the same tonight. Mount Hood Meadows, as Matt said, under a level 3 go now. Timberline and Government Camp under level 1 get ready. And while some roads and trails are closed, both Highway 35 and 26 remain open. In total, over 11,000 fire crews are working across the state in what's already a record-breaking season. 2 million acres burned. That's about 22 Portlands put together. Apologies for the graphic there. Well, if you have to be outside in the smoke, health officials say an N95 mask or better is your best option. They're designed to filter out most of the tiny particles found in smoke known as PM 2.5.
The bandanas, wet or dry, or dust masks, or those blue surgical masks are not effective in protecting against those very fine particulate matter, fine particles that I mentioned earlier.
Experts say the best protection is still limiting your time outdoors, especially when it comes to children, older adults, and people with underlying health conditions. Well, speaking of health, developing this evening, asbestos has been found at the abandoned old mill in the Pearl District, the one that went up in flames. And new tonight, KGW News is learning that the material has also turned up in at least one neighboring residential building. Catherine Cookson tracking that in the newsroom, including some news just in, Catherine, about demolition.
Yeah, and David, we'll get to that teardown process in just a minute. But first, the DEQ today confirmed that lab-tested samples of building debris came back positive for asbestos. The Centennial Mills building was 116 years old when it caught fire over the weekend. The DEQ tells us over the years, efforts had been made to reduce the amount of asbestos inside, but not all of it was removed. And there's this. A letter obtained by KGW sent to residents of one nearby apartment building says debris with asbestos was found in some buildings near the fire site. Some of it at levels deemed dangerous by experts. Building managers say they're working with the DEQ and telling residents not to touch debris they think might be from the fire. The DEQ shared some advice for those who want to clean the debris on their property. They say you should wear a mask and waterproof gloves. You can also wet the material first to keep the dust down. Then after you've cleaned, wash your body and clothes. Also, if you walk near the fire site, you might consider taking off your shoes before going into your house. The city also today said they closed nearby Fields Park out of an abundance of caution. The road and sidewalks in front of Centennial Mills also remain closed as firefighters are concerned that what's left of the building could collapse. And finally, Amtrak service between Portland and Seattle remains suspended as the tracks are right there. And we've learned the city is working with a property owner to plan the demolition of the building. That's assuming it doesn't collapse first. The only timeline they've given, sometime in the next few weeks. David.
Sometime in the next few weeks. Could be a while. Thanks, Catherine. New tonight, life in prison with the possibility of parole after 25 years. That is the sentence handed down to the man recorded on video shooting and killing another passenger in 2021 on a TriMet bus. Wayne Thompson was found guilty of murder in the second degree, and video obtained by KGW shows the deadly encounter. A warning, some of these images may be disturbing. According to police, the victim, Adrian Richardson, was harassing a female passenger when the suspect got on the bus. Less than a minute later, the bus stopped and the driver told Richardson, the victim, to get off. Thompson, the suspect, also yelled at Richardson, then stood up, pulled a pistol out of his pocket, and shot the victim. Prosecutors say Thompson shot Richardson 5 times. He was arrested 3 weeks later and confessed, claiming self-defense.
All I knew is that this guy was having a spaz attack on a bunch of ladies on the bus. So I asked him to leave the bus, and then he decided to have a spaz attack and come and try and attack me, and I finished him.
Thompson's attorney plans to appeal. In an update, a former vice principal in Stayton has been found not guilty of sex abuse charges. A Marion County judge acquitted Christopher Siebert today after a 2-day bench trial. Siebert was arrested last year after a student under 14 accused him of sex abuse while he worked at Regis St. Mary Catholic School. He faced 5 counts, including first-degree sex abuse. The judge finding him not guilty on all counts. New at 11, a Gaston man has been arrested for murder in a case that is 30 years in the making. Alma McCarty spoke with the Washington County DA about what helped crack the cold case. Alma?
Yeah, well, David, it is a combination of new DNA technology, testing evidence collected decades ago, and the investigative work from back then.
On Tuesday, the Washington County Sheriff's Office made an arrest on this rural Gaston road, taking 66-year-old Randall Gall into custody. He's charged with the 1994 murder of Vita Hardebeck, his 85-year-old neighbor. Her daughter, Carolyn Ledbury, found her dead in her home on February 16th of that year.
And I found my mom laying on the concrete. Somebody had severely beat her to a pulp. There was a kitchen window there. They had knocked her through the kitchen window.
KGW spoke with Ledbury last year when the cold case got a second look.
Really startled me because, to me, that was in the past. I was beyond that. Now they brought it all up again, and everything's kind of coming to light.
We reviewed their entire investigation with a fresh set of eyes and fresh investigators.
Washington County District Attorney Kevin Barton explains that despite robust police work at the time, the case remained unsolved for more than 30 years.
And they did all the things that you might expect. They interviewed witnesses, they gathered evidence, they took photographs, etc. They created the foundation that we were able to rely on over 30 years later.
A foundation for new testing.
The ability to go back now and to see, is there DNA that we can pull off of some of these items? That's the type of extra sensitive testing that we are asking these private labs to help us do.
The results and analysis leading cold case investigators to this outcome.
Honestly, it feels like making good on a promise, and it makes me feel as though we're finally able to get justice for victims and families, and that we haven't forgotten.
And the DA says that there are at least 30 cases going back to the 1970s that they believe are now solvable, and the cold case unit will continue to look into them. David?
Just incredible. 30 plus years on. Thanks, Alma. Let's show you some new video from Battleground, where a reckless driver caused quite the scare. Patrol car video from Tuesday showing the driver weaving between cars, running some off the road, and authorities say reaching speeds of 80 miles an hour. The Clark County Sheriff's Office saying the same vehicle had also been linked to multiple hit and runs in the Portland area. Deputies were able to stop them by deploying a grappler. They brought the driver to the hospital for a mental health evaluation. No one was seriously hurt. Oh yes, to the future of Moda now, and a look at Oregon's aging arena after people made their voices heard about the city's opening offer to use public dollars with guardrails to upgrade Moda and to keep the Blazers in the Rose City. We're talking about hours of testimony with many Portlanders expressing passionate opinions. Evan Watson walks us through how it unfolded and what comes next.
Relocating the Blazers would mean more than losing just a basketball team, but a part of our city's identity.
Portlanders share an anxiety over the Blazers' future. Some are worried about the chance the team's new owners could try and move the franchise without a public funding deal. Others concerned a major Moda Center investment comes at the expense of other public needs.
Many of your constituents see this vote as an unfair trade-off of good vibes for bad budget.
Citizens testified for hours on Wednesday in front of Portland council members.
Focus on negotiating a financially responsible agreement that protects taxpayers, modernizes the arena, and demonstrates to the NBA and the world that Portland is serious about keeping the Trailblazers for generations to come.
Some speakers frustrated by the Blazers' lack of public information about the arena project.
We're negotiating in the dark.
Representatives from many unions asked council members to pay for an arena upgrade. A Moda Center janitor testified.
Todos necesitamos la misma atención que cualquier trabajador. Muchas gracias.
That is why we ask you to keep fighting to establish good jobs for everyone at Moda Center and to support this term sheet.
Arena renovations would serve more than the Blazers, opening the door to new concerts and events, and Portland Fire President Claire Hamill says her team needs the support.
Dressing rooms, training and medical facilities, player amenities were not built to support a second growing franchise, let alone a women's team.
Taxpayers repeatedly criticized owner Tom Dundon and his unwillingness to pay for part of an arena renovation.
Pledging hundreds of millions of dollars at the behest of a billionaire who has basically given our city the middle finger since he realized it existed without a clear plan of where that money is going is criminal.
The wide-ranging comments were largely civil and respectful.
I think, frankly, you're doing a very admirable job. Please keep doing that. Keep taking the high road, no matter what. Stay optimistic, stay positive. And I hope you vote for this next week. I really do. I know it's not perfect, but don't let perfect get in the way.
Portland Mayor Keith Wilson says the 12 council members should pass a non-binding term sheet with full public funding next week to kickstart formal negotiations.
We have a term sheet that really is 90% along the way where we need to be. It's time for the council to weigh in and call the question. Are we ready to move on to a comprehensive lease agreement, or are we not?
What's the saying there? Perfect is the enemy of good, right? Evan Watson reporting. By the way, the county is set to potentially vote on its share of funding on Thursday. Remember, we need both the city and the county to unlock a state commitment and to get a deal done. We'll keep you posted. New at 11, for the first time, we're getting a look behind the scenes of negotiations between the Blazers and the city of Portland, because thousands of pages of newly released emails, mostly from June, between the city and the Blazers president and general counsel show the city tried to get the team to agree to certain conditions and in writing. Those include for the team to pay for overrun costs, for it to enter into labor agreements. At least one of the email threads included messages between Blazers officials strategizing how to respond to the city. One of the messages from Blazers president Dwayne Hankins noted the questions, quote, very much feel like a trap, end quote. In the end, the Blazers did not respond to the city in writing.